Hi guys, welcome back to ladensercrotchets. In this tutorial we're going to make this very beautiful ribbed top. This top we're going to make it in two separate panels that we're going to attach together. It's a v-neck shaped top, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. If you're not subscribed, kindly subscribe and join the family, and let's get into the tutorial. I'm using a medium weight yarn. It's 100% acrylic. You can substitute this with any medium weight yarn, be it acrylic or cotton. Then I'll use the 3.5mm crochet hook. You'll need a darning needle, a pair of scissors, and at least 2 stitch markers. You can work without the stitch markers, but if you're a beginner, then you might need the stitch markers. We are going to work with the following stitches, beginning with a slip knot. So you twist your yarn around your index finger, and then you're going to put your hook through that gap that is created, and then grab the longer side of the yarn, then fasten, and there we have our slip knot. Then we're going to work chains, and to chain you yarn over, grab the yarn, pull through the loop that you have in the hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, pull through again. That's how you work a chain. Then the other stitch that you're going to work with is a slip stitch. For a slip stitch, we're going to skip this stitch, then go into the next stitch and put our hook through, yarn over, pull a loop such that you have 2 loops, then pull through the first loop that was on the hook. That's a slip stitch. We go into the next chain, yarn over and pull through the both loops to complete another slip stitch. Put your hook through, yarn over and pull through like that, yarn over, grab the loop, pull through, yarn over, put your hook, yarn over, grab a loop and pull through. That's how you work a slip stitch. Then you're going to work the chain stitch to work a chain, just like that. We're going to be turning. Then the other stitch that we're going to work with is the half double crochet stitch. To work a half double crochet, you yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, grab a loop such that you have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops. That's a half double crochet. We'll do that again. So that's how we're going to work the half double crochet. The other stitch that we're going to work with is a single crochet. And to work a single crochet, you insert your hook into a stitch, grab a loop, and then you're going to get 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the 2. Insert your hook, yarn over, grab a loop, get 2 loops, pull through the 2. So this is a single crochet stitch. Like that. So once you know the stitches that we're going to be working with, we can start our work. So now I'll just pull out whatever I've worked, begin with a slip knot, and then chain 40. The chain 40 is the length from the waist to the armpit. This is going to be a crop top, and therefore if you want your top a bit longer, you can do 45 or 50 chains instead of 40. So I'm going to chain 40. I have my 40 chains, as you can see. So we're going to chain 1 as we hold the last stitch to get to 41. Then we're going to work, as you can see, we have these 2 loops on this side. Then when you turn your chain like this, there's a loop at the back. We're going to work at the loop that is at the back. So on the 40th stitch, this loop right here, we're going to insert the hook there, yarn over, grab a loop and pull through all the loops to complete a slip stitch. Then into the next loop that is at the back, we put a slip stitch, 2, then we're going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So you want to work 10 slip stitches in the first 10 stitches. Remember, we are working in this loop at the back. I hope the loop is visible. There are 3 loops on the chain. There are these 2 that are on this side, and then there's this one at the back. We are working on the one at the back. So after the 10 slip stitches, we're going to change to half double crochets, yarn over, go into the next chain in that back loop, grab a loop to get 3 loops, then yarn over, pull through the 3, and then keep working 1 half double crochet into each of those back loops till you get to the end of row 1. I'm coming to the end of the first row. So in that back loop of that last stitch, I'm going to place a half double crochet. Then I'll work an increase at that last stitch. So I'll work another half double crochet into the same stitch, like that. And at this point, you should have a total of 41 stitches. So you're going to have 10 slip stitches and 31 half double crochets. Chain 1 and turn to begin row 2. Normally we would work in this stitch, but we're going to be working in the back loops. So this is the both loops. This is where you work when you work in both loops, and this one right here is the back loop. So we're just going to insert our hook into that loop along that back loop, yarn over, and pull through for a slip stitch. Go into the next back loop right here, do a slip stitch. Make sure that your slip stitches are not too tight. Into the next back loop, slip stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into all the stitches in the back loop until we get to the end. We'll work both loops in the last stitch, so just place one slip stitch into every stitch. Then I'll meet you at the end and I'll show you how to work the both loops. So row 2 is a row of slip stitches all through. When you get to the slip stitches, you still work the back loops. I'm in the last stitch, and this is the back loop of the last stitch, but we're not going to work that loop alone. We're going to work the both loops like this. So on both sides in the last stitch, we do not work the back loop. We work both loops like that. And we are done with row 2. You chain 1 and turn to begin row 3. When you're beginning a row, we begin in the back loop. When you are ending, we end in the both loops. So in the back loop of this first stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch and work a total of 10. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We are done with slip stitches. We begin the half double crochets in the back loop still. And work 1 half double crochet into all the back loops to the end of row 3. 1 half double crochet. I'll meet you in the last stitch so that I can show you what to do there. So this is what you're going to get. You should have this ribbon right here, and then this is the back side. I'm at the end, and like I mentioned, in the last stitch we work the both loops. So that means instead of working here, I'm going to yarn over and work right here. So that's the last half double crochet, but then we're going to work an increase, so place another half double crochet into that stitch. And that's row 3 done. Chain 1 and turn to begin row 4. Row 4 is going to be a slip stitch row, beginning with the first stitch. Place a slip stitch there into the second stitch and into all the stitches to the end of row 4. So I'm just going to work my slip stitches. I'll meet you in the last stitch of row 4. I'm coming to the end of row 4, and I'm in the last stitch where this is the back loop, but then I'm working both loops. That's row 4 done. Chain 1 and turn to begin row 5. We begin row 5 with slip stitches, 10 of them in the back loops. I have the 10 slip stitches, then I'll change to half double crochets and work till the end. This is row 5. Half double crochets in all the remaining stitches to the end. And then in the last stitch, we're going to do an increase. Remember, we are working back loops all through, except in the last stitch where we work the both loops. I'm in the last stitch now. This is the second last, sorry. So I'll just work in the back loop of the second last stitch. Then in the last stitch, we're going to work in the both loops right here, and we're going to work an increase. And at the end of this row, which is row 5, we should have a total of 43 stitches, counting from this point to the end, or from one end to end. That is 43 stitches, 10 slip stitches, 33 half double crochets. Now chain 1 and turn to begin row 6. Row 6 is going to be a slip stitch row, and we're also going to have 43 stitches or 43 slip stitches to the end of that row. So this is how we're going to alternate until we have 9 rows. I'll work my 9 rows, then I'll be back. Make sure that in the half double crochet row, you increase at the end till you have the 9 rows. I'm in row 6 now, so I'll do row 6, 7, 8, and then 9. After the 9th, I'll be back to show you what to do next. This part is standard for all sizes, so regardless of your size, you're going to work the same way. After the 9 rows, this is what I have. The next thing to do is to chain 20. So chain 20 if you are a size small to medium. If you're a size large to extra large, chain 25. So I'm going to chain 20. 1, 2, so this is the length to the armpits. After chaining 20, that takes us to the shoulders. So I've chained my 20, chain your 25 or your 20, and then you're going to block off the last stitch, block it off, and then chain 1 more. Go into that chain that you're blocking off and do a slip stitch. Then do a slip stitch into the next chain, into the next. And I like to mark this very first stitch because I've been finding it difficult to get the last stitch where the last stitch is. So if you're a beginner, you're going to need to mark this so that you know where that first stitch really is, so that you don't confuse it when you come into the end of the next row. So then I'll keep doing a slip stitch into every chain. like I mentioned, you have to make sure that your slip stitches are not too tight. Also, they should not be too loose, so make sure that you maintain a medium tension on the stitches, not too tight and not too loose. So once you get to the other part, to the main part, you're going to continue all the way down with 1 slip stitch into every stitch. At the end, we're going to work the slip stitch into the both loops as usual. Then we're going to chain 1, work 10 slip stitches, to this point. Then after that, we'll work half double crochets all the way to the top. So I'll meet you in the next row when I'm coming to the end of the next row, the row that has half double crochets. So now I'm at the end and I'm just going to pull out the stitch marker. Then I'll place a half double crochet into the both loops of that stitch because it's our last stitch. Place 1 half double crochet there. And previously we were increasing at the end of the half double crochet stitch, but right now we're not going to increase anymore. So in the middle part of this panel, there's no increase at all. So chain 1 at the end and turn to begin row 12. Now, instead of counting them all, I'll start counting from this row where I've chained. So this will be my row 1, this is row 2. So then I'm going to work row 3 next, which is a slip stitch row. I've already chained 1 and turned, so I'll work a slip stitch in the first back loop. And then work a slip stitch into all the back loops to the end of row 3. Actually, this was part of row 9, so this is row 10, this is row 11. But then, counting from this point, it's row 3. So I'll work the slip stitches down to the end. Once I get to the end, I'll work 10 slip stitches, then all the stitches will get half double crochets. So at this point now, we're just going to continue with the pattern, repeating alternating the slip stitch row with the half double crochet row. And at this point, I'm in row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Sorry. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm in row 13. So the slip stitch row is going to be the row 14. But then counting from this point, I'm in row 1, 2, 3, 4. That's row 4. If you're a size small to medium, you're going to work a total of 34 rows in between. If you're a size medium to large, you're going to work 44. If you're large to 2X, you're going to work 54 rows in the middle. So this is the part that differentiates the size that you're working. So in my case, I'm working a size small, and therefore from this point, I'm going to work a total of 34 rows. So now I'm in row 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm in row 5. I'll just keep alternating the 2 rows until I get to row 34. So this is what I have after the 34 rows right here. Remember, I'm working a size small. If you're working a medium to large, you need to work 44 rows. So that means I have a total of 34 plus 8. Now we need to work the other side, same as this side right here. So beginning from the top, I'm going to work a total of 20, that is. Right here I changed 20. So I'm going to work 20 slip stitches to a point right here and then mark. If you had chain 25, you're going to work 25 and then mark the 25th. So I'll just work the 20 the 20 slip stitches. So that's 1. I'll get the stitch marker and mark that 20th stitch. Then I'll work the slip stitches all the way down to the bottom part. Once I get to the end, I'll work the half double crochet till I get to the stitch before the stitch marker. So that's where that row ends, at the stitch just before the stitch marker. Then we're going to chain 1, turn, and then beginning from the first stitch, we're going to work the slip stitch row. Once I get to the end of the slip stitch row, I'll work the half double crochet row back, but then at the end we're going to do a reduction. So I'll do this row, then I'll show you how to reduce at the end of the next row in the half double crochet row. So you're going to work the half double crochet row until you have 2 stitches remaining. So I have these 2 stitches at the end. I'm going to put them into one for a reduction. So yarn over, put your hook through the second last stitch in the back loop, grab a loop so that you have 3 loops. Don't complete the half double crochet. Go into the 2 loops of the last stitch, grab a loop so that you have 4 loops on your hook, then yarn over, pull through all the 4. So that's a reduction. Now chain 1 and turn. Then work the first stitch. Then I'm going to move the stitch marker to that stitch so that I'm sure of the stitch where I'm going to do the reduction when I'm coming back with the next row. So now I'm just going to work the slip stitch row to the end. Just one slip stitch into every back loop. So now I'm going to work the half double crochets till I have 2 stitches remaining. Then in those 2 stitches, I'm going to do a reduction. At this point, I have the 2 stitches remaining. I'll just remove the stitch marker. And then I'll do a reduction right there. So yarn over, put the hook through the second last stitch and grab a loop. Go into the last stitch in the both loops and grab a 4th loop. Then yarn over, pull through or chain 1 and turn to do the slip stitch row. Now, you want to ensure that the number of rows that you have on this side is the same number as you have on this side. When you do the reduction, you should end, the last row should have a total of 40 stitches, because we began with 41 because of the last increase, so you should have 41. So now I'm doing the reduction. I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 9. So counting from here, I should have a total of 9. 1 2 3 4 5. So I'll work till I get to the ninth row, and then I'll be back. So that means I'll have 9 rows on this side, 34 in the middle, and 9 at the end. I'm done with the 9 rows on this side. As you can see, we have 1 2 3 4 5. Then on the other side, 1 2 3 4 5. And that means we are done with the back panel of the top. This is what we have for the back panel. Now what we're going to do next is a ribbing from this point to this point for the armhole, and then we're going to do the same ribbing on this other side. To do that, I've already chained 1. I need to chain 5, so that's 1 2 3 4 and 5. Then I'll block off the 5th chain and chain 1 more, put my hook into the 5th chain and do a slip stitch. Do a slip stitch into the next chain, that's 2. Then into the next 3, into the next we're going to have 4, and into the last stitch 5 slip stitches. Then we're going to do a slip stitch onto this row. So right here on the row, do a slip stitch. Then we do a slip stitch onto the slip stitch row right here in this gap. Do a second slip stitch, then turn. Once we turn, we're going to work on the 5 slip stitches that we did on the row. So this is row 2, begin there. That is 1 2 3 4. The 5th one, we don't work in the back loop, we work on the both loops, because that's the last slip stitch. Like that, chain 1 and turn to begin the next row, which is row 3. Work the 5 slip stitches, each in the back loop. So in the first stitch in the back loop, we have 1 2 3, then we have 4, and the 5th one 5. Then we're going to go into the next row, which is the half double crochet row. We have a gap right here. So the gap that is close to this row, this one right here, we place a slip stitch there. Then we're going to slip stitch before the slip stitch row. We're going to do another slip stitch. So it's like we're placing 2 slip stitches into the same row, like that. Then turn your work, do row 4, starting from the first stitch. 1 2 3 4, and then the last stitch goes into the both loops. That is the 5th. Chain 1 and turn to begin the next row. We begin the next row in the back loop of the first stitch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Next we slip stitch into the slip stitch row in this gap right here. Then we slip stitch onto the gap next to the slip stitch row right here. Then turn and work the 5 slip stitches. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one into the back, both loops. Chain 1, turn, work the slip stitches, 1 into every stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We are still on the half double crochet row. In the gap before the slip stitch row, we slip stitch, then the next slip stitch will be in the slip stitch row. So slip stitch. So what we're doing is, in the half double crochet row, we are having 2 slip stitches, one right here and one at the end. Then in the slip stitch row, then one next to the slip stitch row, one next to the other slip stitch row, and then the next one in the slip stitch row. And this is what we're going to repeat till we worked up to this corner. Then after getting to the corner, we'll be working on the stitches, so it will be easier once we get to that corner. So right now I've already slip stitched twice. I'm supposed to turn and then work the slip stitch, the 5 slip stitches. 2, so right now I'm working on the half double crochet row. So first slip stitch on that gap, first slip stitch just before the slip stitch row, then turn. That's the second. So when you're coming to this side, you're slip stitching twice, then work the 5 slip stitches. Make sure you work in both loops at the end. Chain 1, turn, right now we slip stitch into the slip stitch row. That's 1 slip stitch, then the next one in that gap, and turn. We are on the second gap of the row, so right here. Then the next slip stitch goes onto this stitch that is at the corner, this stitch right here. That's the second slip stitch. Turn, work the 5 slip stitches. Chain 1 and turn. I'm in the last row of the ribbon on the armhole, and at the end I've just done the last slip stitch. Then because I have no more stitches remaining on this side, I'll just chain 1 and cut off the yarn, leaving a tail for weaving in. like that, and that side is done. We need to do the ribbon on this other side, and we're going to reconnect the yarn from the top part. And to do that, I'll just grab the yarn. I'll start with a slip knot, then chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, then grab the stitch on the top on this end and do a slip stitch on that first stitch. Then into the second stitch I'll do a second slip stitch and turn. Then once I turn, I'll work a slip stitch into each of the chains for a total of 5. That's 1, chain 1 and turn. Then again work the 5 slip stitches. Then we're going to go into the next stitch right here, do a slip stitch, do a slip stitch into the next stitch and turn. Then work on the previous slip stitches, the last 5 slip stitches. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. In the last one, remember we work in the both loops. Chain 1, turn, work a slip stitch into every stitch, so those are 5. Go into the next stitch. We worked into this previously, so we go into the next stitch, do a slip stitch and do a slip stitch into the stitch that follows, 2 of them. So remember, when you're working back, you don't work these 2 slip stitches, you start from the 5th that you worked previously. So when you turn, you begin from right here and not this stitch right here. So at this point you do the 5 slip stitches. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 and the 5th one into the both loops. Then chain 1 and turn. Now you're just going to keep going all the way down till you get to this point. When you get to the rows, remember in the half double crochet row you work 2 slip stitches, then 1 into the slip stitch row. I'll meet you once I'm done with this part. After doing the ribbon on the other side, this is what we have. So the ribbon on both armholes is done, and I'm just going to get my darning needle and weave in these ends at this point. You want to weave them in on the inside or on the wrong side of the top. So this is the wrong side, this is the right side. In between the stitches I'll just put the needle and just weave. You're just going to weave till you're satisfied that it's well hidden, and then cut off whatever ends that remains. Now the ends that I have on top, I'll weave them in later, or I can use them to join the shoulder part of the top. So at this point we are done with the back panel of the top. Time to do the front panel. And to be able to do the front panel, you're just going to start the same way we did. You're going to work the first 9 rows, then you're going to work the increase. After the increase, I've already done that, let me show you. So this is what you're going to do with the front panel. You start by the first 9 rows that we did, then increase by chaining either 20 or 25 depending on whatever you've chained. Then from this point we're going to work a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. So work 7 rows, and then after that, actually you're going to work 6 rows. 1, 2, this is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then in the 7th row we're going to mark from the top part. I've already worked the 7th row to the bottom, so I'm going to count 15 stitches This is standard for everyone, so count 15 from the top. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. Then mark the 15th stitch, and that means we're going to work the next row differently. So the next row is the half double crochet row, but then we always begin with the 10 slip stitches on the bottom part for the ribbon at the bottom. So begin with the 10 slip stitches. So that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10. Then change to half double crochets, and you're just going to place one half double crochet till you get to where the stitch marker is, the stitch before the stitch marker. In the stitch just before the stitch marker, I'm going to work in the both loops instead of working in the back loop like that. Then you're going to chain 1 and turn. Then we're going to start reducing. To reduce in the slip stitch row, you just skip the first stitch. So skip the first, work into the second. Then just work 1 slip stitch to the end of this row. Once you get to the end of the slip stitch row, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and then you're going to work the 10 slip stitches. Change to half double crochets and work until you have 2 stitches remaining. At the end of this row, we're going to reduce. So I'll meet you at the end when you have 2 stitches remaining, so that I can show you how to reduce. I have my two stitches remaining, so I'll just put them into one, yarn over, go into the back loop of the second last and grab a loop. Put your hook into the last stitch in the both loops and grab another loop to get 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through all the 4, chain 1 and turn to begin the next row. We begin with the reduction, and to reduce we skip the first stitch and work into the second. Then do the slip stitches all the way down. Once you get to the last stitch, chain 1 and turn. Then you're going to work the half double crochet back. As you come back, you're also going to work a reduction. I'm going to do a reduction for a total of 10 rows, and this is how you're going to know how to reduce. So the number of rows you're going to reduce will be determined by the number of rows that we worked on this top part of the back panel. So in my case, I did a total of 34, and therefore you're going to take the 34, divide it by 2. When I divide 34 by 2, I get 17. Then you're going to take the 17 that you've gotten, deduct 7 that we've worked here, and that will give me 10. So that means if the back panel part, the top part of your back panel had 44, you're taking 44 divided by 2 to get 22. Then you'll take 22 minus the 7 that we have here, and that will give you 15. So you're going to reduce for 15 rows. In my case, because I'm getting 10, I'll reduce here for 10 rows. Right now, in row, this is 1 2 3 4, I'm in the 4th row of reduction, so I'll just keep going till I get the 10, or till I get 17 rows counting from this point. So these are 7, then plus the 10, that will be 17. So let me just keep going with the reduction, and I'll be back to show you what I'll have once I'm done with the reduction in the next 10 rows. So yours could be 10, 15, 20 and so on, depending on the size that you're working. Now this is after 10 rows of the reduction, and now we're going to work an increase for another 10 rows. If you've reduced for 15, you're going to increase for 15. If you've decreased for 20, you're going to increase for 20 rows. So the first row of increase, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now this is a slip stitch row, and to increase in the first stitch we don't do a slip stitch, instead we do a single crochet. The single crochet will be the first stitch, and then into that same stitch we're going to slip stitch. Then I would advise that you mark the single crochet stitch so that you don't forget it. I'm okay with not marking because I can remember where it is, but to ensure that you don't lose count of that stitch, mark it. So all the other stitches to the bottom of the top are going to be slip stitches because this is a slip stitch row. The reason why we are doing a single crochet before the slip stitch is because you cannot have 2 slip stitches in the same stitch. It's not possible. So you're doing the single crochet, then the slip stitch into the same stitch for that first increase. So this is my first row of increase. Let me do it, then I'll work the next row up, then I'll show you how to increase at this point. So let me work to the bottom, and I'll meet you once I'm coming back to the end of the next row. I'm in the last stitch, and I'll just pull out the stitch marker. Then into that stitch, in the both loops, I'll work 2 half double crochets for that increase. Or there's this one that I've not worked in, this one right here, before the last. So into the last one, 2 half double crochets. So that's the second increase. Then I'm going to chain 1 and turn to begin the next row, which is a slip stitch row. We begin with an increase of a single crochet in the first stitch, then a slip stitch into the same stitch, and then slip stitches all the way down, 1 into every stitch. Then you're going to work the 10 rows of increase, or 15 or 20 depending on your size. So let me work the 10 rows and I'll be back to show you what to do next. I'm done with the 10 rows of increase, and I've ended on top. If you end at the bottom, you're going to need to do a row until you get to the top. Once you get to that point, you're going to chain 15. 15 is the same number of stitches that we left at this point. So chain 15. After you get the 15 chains, turn your work like this, then lock off the 15th chain and chain 1 more. Then do a slip stitch into that 15th chain and then mark that first stitch. Like I said, I mark these to avoid confusion when I'm working the next row. So that's the first, and you're going to work slip stitches all the way down to the bottom. Then you're going to chain 1, turn, work 10 slip stitches, then all the other stitches up to the top here will be half double crochet, and you want to work the same number of rows as you had on the other side. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So this is the first row that I'm working. I'm going to work 6 more without increasing or decreasing, alternating between the slip stitch row and the half double crochet row, and I'll be back once I'm done with all the 6 rows. This is after the 6 rows, and we have this part remaining on this side. We are mirroring it on this side. So we begin by, remember the chains that we did here were 20. If yours were 25, then you're going to do 25 slip stitches. In my case, I'll do 20 and then mark the 20th stitch. So beginning from the top, I'll chain 1 and turn, then do 20 slip stitches. Once you get to the 20th, I'm going to mark it, the 20th stitch, then continue all the way down with a slip stitch into every chain. Then at the end, you're going to chain 1, turn, do the 10 slip stitches. Then the other stitches will be half double crochets till you get to the stitch before the stitch marker. So I'll work this row and the next one, and then I'll be back to show you what to do next. In the stitch before the stitch marker, I'm going to work into the both loops, then chain 1, turn. We want to work something that is identical to this side, and therefore in this next row we're going to work the slip stitch in all the stitches. Then the next row will be a reduction, then the slip stitch, then another reduction, until you have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you should have 5 rows of half double crochets. I've already done 1. The next half double crochet row is going to be a reduction, and we're going to work 4 more to get 5 of them, 5 rows of the half double crochet rows. And that should be a total of 9 rows from here. So this is 1, this is 2, then I'll work the other rows to get to 9 rows, and that will get me, we'll work an extension like whatever we have on this side. So remember that on the edges we only increase or reduce in the half double crochet. In the middle part we reduce both in the half double crochet and the slip stitch row. On this other edge we only reduce in the half double crochet rows. So as I work the slip stitch row, I'm not reducing. When I come back up with the half double crochet row, I'll reduce until I get my 9 rows. So I'll see you when I'm done with the 9 rows, then I can show you how to do the next part. So right here I've done the reduction of 9 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have my reduction, and at this point we are done with the front panel. I'm just going to do the ribbon just the same way we did with the back panel. So from that point where I've ended, I'm going to chain 5, then block off the 5th and chain 1 more, work a slip stitch into the 5th chain, and then work the other 4 stitches with 1 slip stitch. That's 1. So we have 2, 3, 4 and 5. Then slip stitch onto the row and slip stitch into the next gap on the slip stitch row, then turn. And I'm just going to work this the same way I worked with the back panel, and then I'll reattach the yarn on this end and work the other ribbon on the armhole. Once I'm done with the ribbon on the armholes, I'll be back and I'll show you how to join the 2 pieces to make the top. This is after the ribbon on both sides, and like you can see, I've left long tails on each end. These ones are the ones that I'm going to use to attach the shoulder part, because I realized that the ones on the other panel are a bit short. So I'll just weave these ones in, and then I'll use these ones to attach the shoulder part of the top. Now I'll weave these ones on this edge in, before I go on to attach the two panels together. So just put the yarn through to the wrong side of the top and then weave. So you want to ensure that you're going in between the stitches such that the yarn is not visible on the other side. Then cut off the ends that remain right there. And now we are ready to attach the two panels together. So we have the back panel. This is the right side. You're just going to turn it to the wrong side. It's supposed to remain like this on the right side. Then this is the front panel, and we're going to flip it to the wrong side such that you have the two right sides facing each other like this. And then this is what I'll use to attach. I'm going to weave in these ones that are on the back panel. I'll weave the ends on the back panel first before I get to attaching the panels together. So now, like I've mentioned, you're going to hold the back panel with the right side facing us, then that's the back panel, then the front panel, the wrong side facing us like this. And now we need to attach on the shoulders. So get the yarn needle. And start from this first stitch, go into both loops and onto the both loops of the other side. Then I'll go to the next stitch and the next stitch on the other side like this. You can attach however you feel is okay for you. You don't have to do it the same way I'm doing. Just make sure that the corresponding stitches are attached together. So once I get to that point, the stitches are attached, the stitches on the ribbon, then you want to attach the rows on the shoulder part of the top. So we have that part well joined. This is how it looks like on the right side. Now once you get to that end, you're just going to make a knot. Then weave in the tail or the end that remains, weave it inside the stitches on that wrong side. Then cut off the end that remains. Once that end is joined, we're going to move to the other side and join the same exact way. Now this is after we join the shoulder part together, and that's what we have now. Next we're going to join these sides, And to do that, you need to ensure that when you're joining, the corresponding stitches are aligned. So I'll just grab some yarn, put it through the darning needle. Make sure that the yarn is able to weave all the way down. You can start from the bottom or from the top, it doesn't matter. So I'll start from the bottom part. Then from the first stitch, I'll work on both loops on one side. Then on the other side, I'll work on the back loop, like this. Both loops on one side, one back loop on the other side. I'll just tie a knot right here. Then I'll work over that shorter tail. So we've attached the first stitch. So instead of working the both loops on one side and one loop on the other side, I've decided that I'll work the back loops of each of the sides. This gives me a better effect on the other side. So that means I'm working on this loop on this side, then this loop on the other side, the back loop on the other side. So this and this loop right here. So it's like we are working the front loop on this side and the back loop on the other side. This will give us a seamless joint, such that it's not too visible that you joined at that part. Now I'll keep going to the top and then join the other side. Then I'll be back to show you how to work the ribbon on the neckline. This is after I've joined both sides, and I'm just going to turn this to the right side now. We have only the ribbon on the neckline remaining to work, and we're going to reconnect the yarn from this point, work the ribbon all the way along the neckline and come back to this point. So get the hook and the yarn. We begin with a slip knot, then get the middle part, I reconnect in this row the slip stitch row. So do a slip stitch right there to reconnect the yarn. Then you're going to chain 5, then lock off the 5th chain and chain 1 more. Put your hook into the 5th chain, do a slip stitch, do a slip stitch into the next chain, into the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Then we're going to get to the half double crochet row. In the half double crochet row, you should get 2 slip stitches. So you're going to have one next to the row that we've reattached, and another one next to the next slip stitch row. So 2 slip stitches down there, and then turn. Then work 1 slip stitch into the 5 slip stitches for a total of 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The 5th one is worked into the both loops. Then chain 1, turn, then start in the first slip stitch, work 1, work the second one, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Then we slip stitch onto the slip stitch row right here, then slip stitch onto the gap that is next to that row. Those are 2 slip stitches. Then turn, do the 5 stitches. Remember, at the end we always work in both loops. Chain 1, turn, work slip stitches into each of the stitches, 1 into each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're going to work, before the slip stitch row, we work a slip stitch and a second one into the row, the slip stitch row, and turn. So what you're going to ensure is that you have 2 slip stitches into the half double crochet row, 1 into the slip stitch row, and you're going to work until you get to the stitches. Once you get to the stitches, you'll be slip stitching in 1 stitch and into the second, then turning on this side, and keep going till you go all the way around. So we just work in the ribbon the same way we did with the armhole part. So I'll just go on, complete the ribbon on the neckline, then I'll show you how to join once you come to the end. This is after working the ribbon all around the neck, and now I've left a tail or an end that I'm going to use to attach the 2 ends together. I'll just attach from the right side. You can attach from the wrong side if you want. So I'll just go through the first stitch on one side and through to the other stitch on this other side, then into the second stitch and the second stitch on the other side, then the 3rd and the 3rd on this other side, the 4th and the 4th, and then the 5th. Then I'll just put the yarn through to the wrong side of the top, Then I'll repeat from the wrong side just to ensure that then I'll put a knot and then weave in the end that remains. Then I'll get this other end and weave them together. Once that is done, the top is done. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed it, kindly leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you're not subscribed, share with your friends so that they can also come and watch the tutorial, and see you in the next one.